Alright, this is the history of elements. So a little bit about the history of elements. The original idea of elements, and of course we can't even really use the term elements. I used it here, but we can't even really use that. The term element hadn't even been brought about, but the idea that there were four basic things in the universe in 400 BC by the ancient Greeks, that all matter was composed of these four basic things: earth, wind, fire, and water. So everything in the universe was thought to be made of these four basic things. That's what the ancient Greeks believed. And then, of course, over time, there were these people named alchemists. They came about for about the next 2,000 years. And, of course, their definition of things changed a little bit, not because a lot of them were truly believed in changing the idea and studying chemistry, but a lot of them were just kind of kooky people. They were just completely obsessed with trying to make gold. They thought they could take any metal and change it into gold. They thought they could go into their basements, into their kitchens, and take iron or copper or whatever and change it into gold. They wanted to become rich. And of course, now we know that the only way you're going to be able to do that is to put them in some kind of particle accelerator, smash atoms together, and get that. But they didn't know that back then, of course. Chemistry was in its infancy. But some were very sincere scientists. They were, true artists of their craft, as you can say. Isaac Newton was an alchemist. I don't think we would call him a kook. Maybe we would, but things were made from or discovered because of alchemists. Elements were found: mercury, sulfur, antimony. Those were all things that were given to us or found because of the study of alchemy. We were able to learn how to prepare acids, which was very important, and gave us many different things. So alchemy was, of course, a kind of a thing that, people were doing because they wanted to become rich and get gold, but, gave us a lot of things. Then came Robert Boyle, which we talked about in previous chapter. We already talked about how he had gas laws with his P1, P1 V1 equals P2 V2 gas law. But, even though he studied pressures and things, he also, in the 1600, he gave us the true definition of element. He was the first one to say, hey, this is an element, this is what it is, and this is what it's going to be. And so that's what, he's given credit for. So, elements we give symbols for because, a lot of them have very long names and it would get a little tedious to write the entire word for. Elements have symbols, and they can rather be one capital letter, like carbon is just a capital C, or they can be a capital letter and one or two small letters. Like, for example, cobalt is CO. And I want to stress a lot, especially when you're getting ready to take your element quiz here soon, is that the symbols need to be one capital letter and one or two small letters. So cobalt needs to be capital C, little o. See how I made the distinction between the C and the O? It cannot be like that. And if I see this on the quiz, that will be marked wrong. And that's because when we get ready to write compounds, this right here is cobalt. This right here is carbon monoxide. And we have to make that distinction because if not, there's a big difference when we get ready to write our chemical reactions and our compounds and that kind of thing. So please make sure we start good habits now, and that's why I mark things wrong now so that you learn now instead of later. So just a couple other things about chemical symbols. Like, I get the question a lot, why did they come up with this symbol when you study? Symbols come from a lot of different places. They come from just the first letter of the name, like carbon, C. They come from, different letters within the name, aluminum, Al, the first two. Sometimes they can come from, Latin, Greek, like silver. See how it came from its Latin name, argentium. So you could see that, they come from a variety of places. Same thing with their names. Their names have a lot of different places too. They could come from the scientists who found them, or even in honor of a scientist. Rutherfordium, Einsteinium, Mendelevium, those are all, elements. Places, Californium, Berkelium, Germanium, those are all elements that have given, from places. For properties, and again, a lot of this is like Latin things that, because they look in this certain way, so they've given the, Latin root of that. The international system for naming. A lot of the new elements they have in place, like you'll see on the periodic table, like UUV, that's an international system. So we say, okay, well, we don't have a name for it yet. It hasn't even been discovered, so we're going to give it this abbreviation or this name in order to say, hey, it's coming. And that's a good point, too, since I've wrote this on this little board here, and it's kind of, it's hard to write on this little board. Make sure that, letters are very distinct, like U's and V's, so I can tell what those are as well. All right, that's the end.